Michael was back home, and it's like he stopped me like red-handed, and he says, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I think I passed the bar exam, but I don't know for sure." So we're like scrambling to get the numbers, and then the doorbell rings. It's the alarm system guy. He answers the door, and he's like, "We'll be right with you." Closes the door back. We're ferociously looking, and all of a sudden we both see it jumping up for joy, screaming, and finally coming down off that high. And I said, maybe we should let the alarm system guy.
Have the person that has probably the best ever celebration picture after passing the bar, Joni Mazzola. Hi, Joni. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. How are you, Jackson?
Well, good. You want to show picture people the sign that you made for your picture because it's
Yes,
so good.
sure. I wish I would have actually printed out the picture that I sent you, but
Yeah, because the picture's great, but there it is. I
can you see
can't
it?
I can't stop smiling because I passed the Florida bar exam. Well, congratulations.
I went out that night and I showed this to everybody I knew and didn't know.
Oh, cool. That must have been fun.
It was fun.
Awesome. Well, this was not an easy journey for you, was it?
Anything but.
Yeah. And it's one of the reasons I was so excited to be able to get you on the show to tell your story because I know some of the story. I don't think I know it all, but it was really an extraordinary battle for you to get here against some pretty significant odds, and you did it. So why don't we back up, tell people a little bit about yourself and how you got into law, and then how you got out of law and how you came back to it. Okay.
Well, it was nothing. It's been nothing less than a Herculean effort from the get. I guess I'll start. I graduated high school, valedictorian. I want to go to college. I want to go to law school. I mean, I have it written in my yearbook. So I certainly did that. Went to college, graduated, went to law school. I actually did graduate. This is
There
me.
you go. I love it. Nice picture. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually from 2004. That's when I graduated law school. So the thing about law school was, well, and actually my entire life is I slept through a lot of my classes, to be quite honest. And that was nothing new. That had always worked for me. I did it all through high school, all through college, and always did very, very well. But law school, not so much. A bit more challenging than I was used to. So I struggled with trying to keep up with the assignments. I was just very tired, and I've always been known as a heavy sleeper. Fine. So it wasn't until 6 years after law school that I realized I have a very rare sleep disorder. It's basically a mild form of narcolepsy.
Yeah.
So, and of course, when I get this diagnosis, I think, huh, I wonder if law school would have been a bit easier, if I had done a bit better, if I had known this then. But by that time, law school was way behind me. I had decided law was not for me. Apparently, it bored me to death or bored me to sleep, is what I assumed, and went on to do other things. Um, so after the diagnosis, I sort of got a new lease on life, did other things. Um, I wasn't quite ready to tackle the bar exam. Um, because just of sheer fear of failure. And so instead, what I did was I moved to Florida and bought a restaurant because everybody knows how those are usually really successful, right?
Yeah, as a failed restaurant owner, I can appreciate the irony of this, but go ahead, tell us more.
Well, it was on my bucket list. It was something I wanted to do, and I finally got up the nerve to do it. And thankfully, I actually was in that small percentage of restaurateurs who actually made it go. And I had it for about 4 years and won 20 some Reader's Choice Awards. And by that point, I had decided, and my back had decided for me, that it was time to scratch that off my bucket list and sell the restaurant. So I did that, and I thought, okay, it's been, at that point, it had been what 12 years,
Yeah.
almost going to 13. And I thought, okay, it's time to address unfinished business. So after taking my long, over decade hiatus, I finally decided to study for the bar exam. So here I am in Florida, and I went to law school in Ohio, and of course didn't know anything about Florida law. Really didn't know much about law at all from what I felt because I slept through a lot of my classes the first time around, and that had been so long ago. So basically, I went into this review course almost as if I had never gone to law school at all. And so I'm combing through articles, combing the web, and your program pops up in an article I had read, and I wish I could have remembered who the attorney was. It was a Tampa-based attorney who had referenced Celebration Bar Review, and so that's when I started doing a little digging. And I don't know if you remember, we had a conversation back. It was I think literally a week before I sold my restaurant, September 2016, and I said, "Can I do this? Is this even possible?" And of course, you talked me into it. And next thing I knew, I was okay. Like since when does anything unconventional hold me back? Okay, let's go ahead. Let's do it. So, um, and if at any time you want to stop me, feel free.
No, no, this is a great story. Keep going.
So, I am very old school. I like printed things. I like to make notes. So I ordered the printed version, and it arrives just a few days, I think, after my final day at the restaurant. So I sell my restaurant on September 30th, big benchmark day, and then 2 days after that, my boyfriend Michael's mother passes away.
Mm.
And then, so we're clamoring over that. And then not really much time to mourn because guess what? Hurricane Matthew's coming. So all of the things that I had schlepped into our garage from the restaurant, yeah, had to be reorganized so we can actually get the cars in there.
Yeah.
So all these things are going on. We have no electric for, I don't know, 2 or 3 days. I can't get online to hear your lectures. I'm literally like Abe Lincoln reading my little books by candlelight and just trying to basically get an idea, get familiar with the course. So fast forward through the hurricane, thankfully made it through that. Then there's a trip to New York for the wake, 2 more trips to New York for 2 weddings. I mean, it was like 2 weddings and a funeral. And then I've got bronchitis because I've been traveling in those, airtight pathogen containers that they call airplanes.
I've heard of those, yes.
Yes. So I've got bronchitis. I'm trying to finish up my bar application by November 15th. Meanwhile, my mother and sister are coming down. And then it's Thanksgiving. And it was just, basically, I didn't get into my real hardcore studies until December.
Right.
So, 14 years out of law school, and I've got, less than 3 months here to study. So that was, December, January, February, day and night. I didn't work at all during that time. So I go take the exam, and what a shamble. Like, what was I even thinking? There's no way I could have been prepared for that. But I guess, I had to see what it was about. So I actually got my results back, and I missed it by 3 points.
Yeah, which is pretty remarkable.
And the funniest part was, and I didn't tell you this at the time because I thought he could either find this very funny or very obnoxious. So I didn't get through all the lectures that I wanted to get through before the exam. And so here I am. I'm making the 3-hour drive to Tampa, and I'm literally listening to Florida criminal procedure for the very first time in my car. Now, I don't know if you recall, but when we had the conference after I got my results back, I think you had said that I had been like one of the absolute highest scoring applicants from your course in criminal procedure for Florida, for the Florida portion of the exam, which I found to be hysterical. And that should be a testament to how great your lectures are, apparently.
Well, either that or, I don't even know what it is. It means you didn't fall asleep. That's good. Now that I know this sleeping thing a little bit more, it scares me to think that I might have been a third party defendant in a tort hypo. Student falls asleep while driving, listening to dull bar review lecturer, film at 11.
I'm been seeking treatment for many years now. I think we're all safe.
Okay. All right. So you go through, you have this experience, and I remember one of the really amazing things was, given all the things that had happened, I thought coming within 3 points was actually a pretty remarkable result. I mean, it was disappointing, obviously, but I think sometimes we have to measure what the start point is, what the challenges are, and then sort of see where we're at. And one of the things about you, Joni, is your spirit. You are just sort of one of those undefeatable kind of people. And you're not one that sort of sits there and says, well, my life sucks and this is terrible and everything's bad. You're, as people obviously can tell already, you're very engaging. And so you were just like, okay, we're going to go. I mean, it was go do it. So pick up the story from there. Go ahead.
So, and I said, and if any time I bore you, please just cut me off.
I think our audience is going to be thrilled to hear this story.
So, okay, I take the exam in February, and by this point, I now have 3 weeks to study for the MPRE.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, professional responsibility lectures were 2 of the lectures I had not gotten to before the exam. So I'm cramming in all the ethics I can possibly take for this exam. Thankfully, I passed that. And by the time that the February exam results come out in April, and I find out that again I'm 3 points shy, I'm thinking, okay, fine, I'm ready to go back at it, hardcore, early this time, right? Wrong, because the Florida Board of Bar Examiners had many, many questions about my application, which is something I want to get to a little bit later, just to touch on very quickly as advice to future test takers. Mm-hmm. So anyway, now I'm spending quite a bit of time gathering documents and meeting these requests. So there's going some of my study time, and now I'm working part-time. I'm volunteering at the hospital. I've got all these other things now. And before I realize it, it's mid-May, so I've got 2 months now. I'm like, God, I have the best intentions. So I've got 2 months. Okay, I've got to make some decisions, some hardcore decisions, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to focus primarily on the MBE. Rather than, fail both of these equally, I'm going to at least try to knock one out if I can, and if I do okay on the other one, all right, great. And so that was sort of my strategy for that. And the funny thing was, and we could do a whole other podcast just on my experiences in Tampa alone. I don't know, I have a cloud over me for some reason. But long story short, in Tampa, the night before the MBE, I am disturbed to discover there are cockroaches in my room. You can't make this up, Jackson. You can't make this up. I actually took pictures because I thought no one would believe this. So now, and this is like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. There's no way I'm switching rooms. No way I'm switching rooms. There's no way I'm drinking any coffee out of the little coffee pot.
I think we're clear on that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I can't go back to sleep because I'm just so skeezed by the whole thing. So I got so little sleep for the second day for the MBE portion of the exam. But by the afternoon, I'm literally dozing off in the exam. Mm-hmm. To the point where I look up and I'm thinking, I don't remember answering the last 3 questions, but I've got them filled in, and they look right, so I'm moving forward. Amazingly, I passed the MBE. I am still stunned, shocked, passed, was ecstatic. and I missed passing the entire exam by 1 point.
Right.
So that was
So just now for folks to catch this, we're under 3 points. Now we pass the MBE. We're under the whole exam by 1 point. Were you photo reading at this point? Was that part of your study?
That's a great question. I had signed up for the photo reading,
Yeah.
and I had full intention of doing it, but as things started happening and my timeline started getting smaller and smaller, to be quite honest, I didn't feel comfortable sacrificing the little time that I had to invest on learning this strategy,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Right.
It got to the point where it's that I thought, okay, the more time I invest into trying this versus actually just getting the material in, the more I'm going to panic and the more likely I am to be unsuccessful.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I didn't get to take advantage of the photo reading. I did try it, very briefly, and then just decided that I just didn't have the time to spend with it. So, which it would have been very, very helpful, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're ready to go back, but this time you're going to sit only for the Florida part of the exam, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what
So,
happens now?
so a little pressure off. I'm thinking, okay, great. Now I'm thinking I am going to start way ahead of schedule this time. I'm like, okay, game on, half down, have to go. This is great. You get a nice head start. So, as I'm thinking this, of course, we are closing on a house and we get to move in the night before a little storm. Maybe you've heard of it, passed through Florida, called Hurricane Irma.
Yeah.
So, yeah, night before, trying to get everything in, just shove it wherever you can find a spot. And this time around, and thankfully no major damage, but this time around, no electric for 8 days.
Yeah. It was pretty awful. For those that don't know, I mean, Irma went right. The eye of the storm actually passed right over our home here. It was not
Thank,
supposed to hit us. It was supposed
right.
to go somewhere else, hit us, and then kept going. And you were caught up in it. And we had no power in Florida generally for about a week, most of the
Yeah.
state.
Yes.
Okay. All
Everything,
right.
everything backed up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
all of the flooring guys, the painters, they're also backed up. So no furniture's going in. Talking about air mattress for 2, 3 weeks. Everything's in boxes. So yeah, I can't even find my life. There's like paper clips with I don't know potato chips. Like everything's just like crammed in. So that gets put on hold. And then of course I get another request from the Florida Board of Bar Examiners. Meanwhile, to clarify something else in the application, spending quite a bit of time on that. And then I actually go up north to Ohio to get some of my furniture from my mom's house. I'd had there for a while. While I'm there, she has a stroke.
Yeah.
So pretty devastating. Thank goodness, no paralysis. She was very, very fortunate, but still very scary. Her blood pressure was very unstable and still is being monitored even at this point. But just a very big scare came out of nowhere. So dealing with that, and then literally 2 weeks later, Michael has a heart attack.
Right.
So this is
So let's
all,
let's let's just get this in context. There's a
yeah,
hurricane. There's a stroke. There's a heart attack in a
yeah.
period of a month. Right.
Um, roughly, yeah, maybe a little over a month, yeah.
Okay. And it's before the bar exam.
Oh yes, this is before. This is before November.
Okay. So
So
at that point, did you consider maybe I should just quit, give up?
yep.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
okay,
yeah.
July, next July, here I come. But of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, all right, you know, the longer I wait, and if I don't pass, obviously I'm going to lose that passing MBE score, and I'm going to lose my passing MPRE score.
Right. Right.
All these pressures are turning, and so Michael is in the hospital. He's in ICU for 5 days, and he also owns a business. So I'm trying to a graphic design business, which I know nothing about. I'm trying to go answer his emails, go to the hospital, you know, unpack, and then I became caretaker for several weeks, and all of these things are coming into play. Then, of course, Thanksgiving, Christmas. It was January 3rd before I finally got to locate, unpack my books, and actually dig back in.
Okay. So I think a lot of people at this point would have said, it's not in the cards for me, at least not this exam time. Too much happening, too many things going on. And one of the things I've discovered over the years is that there are really two broad categories of students. There are the people that are easily distracted, and virtually anything that's unusual, disruptive, causes them to stop and defer. And then there are people who are just determined. They're just going to run through walls. It doesn't matter. It's just they're going to keep going. And you're obviously in that second category because you decided in January you were going to put your head down and just go make this thing happen.
Yeah.
So now, how do you do that? You've only got a couple of months to make it happen. So what did you do?
I drank a lot of Mountain Dew.
Okay. Thank you, Mountain Dew. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the 4 hours, 5 hours a day, that's out the window. It's like full speed ahead as much as I can with everything else going on. So obviously I knew that essays were my weak point. And I knew that from the get. I knew that from 14 years ago. That was one of the few things from law school I did remember. So that was where I did find, and we didn't have very many conferences, but it's one thing that I did find that was helpful, and one thing that I did make sure to contact you with was the essays.
Mm-hmm.
And I did find the FLA very helpful, but as you know, I struggled with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest advantage that learning that method gave me was just being able to get a perspective on this huge, massive word problem, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Just start breaking things down into bite-sized pieces. But I don't know if you recall, but my problem was my answers were very, very concise.
Yes, they were short, folks. She just didn't say much.
Basically, like fact. Plaintiff did X. Law. This is a breach. Analysis. Breaches are bad. The end.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's a pretty good indicate. Yeah, that's a pretty good capsule of some of that early writing. I agree. Okay.
and of course, and you were somewhat diplomatic and with me, and well, you're a great writer. Everything is written very eloquently, but you basically, in so many words, you're saying you're about 1,000 words short. Really, I mean, it was at least 800 words short. So I'm thinking, okay, how it was so hard for me. I felt like I don't know why I struggled with it, but I always felt like that getting more analysis in felt redundant. So the way that I got around that was thinking, okay, how can you add more words, and how can you make this still be meaningful? And I went back through, read old essay answers, the model answers, and I'm reading what they've got, and I'm thinking, reading what some of the things that you had in the books, and I'm thinking, okay, here's the only way that I'm going to be able to get past this writer's block, apparently, that I have. I need to go into reporter Joni mode. I need to answer the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and I have to think of it that way, and that will get me to write. And sure enough, I finally made a breakthrough. Mm-hmm. So who are the parties? Bam. What's the legal principle? Statute of frauds. When does this apply? Why do we have it? What's the policy behind it? And how does it help or hurt? And if I followed that methodology, then I couldn't stop writing.
Okay.
But for some reason, I just had a block up until that point. And the way that I got comfortable with it was thinking, write like you're writing it for your neighbor. Mm-hmm. write like you're writing it for your cousin, for your uncle, for somebody who's not in law school, who doesn't know anything about the law. And once I did that, then I was fine.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I think people have to find those breakthrough moments. They have to find the way that they can integrate what we're teaching them and internalize it and make it their own. And I think you did that. So now you're focused on the Florida essays, Florida multiple choice only, the one day of the test. You go back to Tampa, hopefully to a cockroach-free hotel this time.
Yes.
Okay. You sleep better, and you take the test. What did it feel like going in to take the test this time?
I had a lot more confidence, but I think because at this point I felt as if I was, this was all I was going to know or hold at the same time, all at once. It felt like I
Mm-hmm.
had to just let it out, or I'm going to start forgetting the things that I've learned. So, mixed emotions. And of course, it didn't help that that day they're having these all these software issues,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah. So
Again, for those of you who don't know, the bar exam soft had technical problems again for the second time in like the last 5 or 6 years, and this was a major problem in some jurisdictions and in some for some people's computers, and it wasn't loading properly, and there was an update to the software, and it was just a mess. And
yeah,
they actually started late in Tampa because they were trying to fix people's computers. So
right.
the whole day was really kind of a disaster, which
Oh yeah.
is becoming more the norm and less the exception. So that kind of adds to everybody's stress, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly did, especially when I had a late checkout that day, so that I wouldn't
Okay.
have to pay for an extra night. So now I am past that time. So I spent my lunch break, number one, trying to use the restroom. Everybody who takes the bar exam should know. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Everybody flocks. You don't have, you literally, at least I didn't have time. I
Yeah.
used every single minute, and trying to run the half a mile down the Riverwalk to my hotel so that I can get my stuff out, check out, and get back to the convention center. So yeah, that was a bit of stress right there in that half hour. hour.
Wow. Okay.
So, but I did feel much better. I felt much more confident than I had previously, and I had finally at this point really refined the Florida common law differences.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. That is one piece of advice while I'm thinking of it for bar takers. Know the differences.
Hmm.
Because, and it's not apparent. The way the questions are worded, you know that common law is one way and Florida's the other way, but you need to remember which one is which.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah.
And that was a tough lesson learned. But and what was hilarious was that I had just listened again. I think that was the only lecture that I listened to twice of yours was the Florida, and sure enough, 2 points that you hit on were on the exam.
Okay. Yay me. All
Yes,
right.
you.
Okay. So now exam is done and Michael's feeling better, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay. Mom is getting better.
yes.
Power has been restored, although I have to say, Florida still looks pretty miserable in places from Irma. So, okay. And now you're in the waiting period. There's about a 6 week waiting period after the exam is over before results come out. What's your mindset during those 6 weeks? What are you thinking about, or what's crossing your mind at this point?
I remember. I remember looking across the dinner table at Michael, and at one point randomly saying, I bet if I go online now and book my room for July, I'll probably get a better rate.
That's what we like, a really positive attitude. Okay.
I'm a
So,
realist, so I'm trying not to think about it, because there's really no way of knowing. I felt really good about the first and third questions. The second question I skipped, I came back to, and I struggled with that for a while, and then finally at the 11th hour, light bulb went off, and I thought, oh my gosh, I read about this. I just never actually did a practice question about it. So I finally like got a moment of clarity, and I'm ferociously writing. And of course, time is called, and I'm thinking, I'm praying, did I write enough, just
Mhm.
enough to get me by? So that's the thought that's in my head. Meanwhile, I know obviously what date the results are going to be released. I don't tell a single soul. No, not even Michael. Nobody knows. In fact, I didn't even tell my mother I had taken the exam.
Okay.
So this is, yeah, completely mystery. And I'm thinking, if I get good news, everybody will know. If I get bad news, nobody has to know. So I'm waiting, and honestly just kept myself very busy, and um, basically picked out a lot of home furnishings that I had not gotten the opportunity to do earlier. I mean, if you'll notice, we're in my
Okay.
office. I still have nothing on the wall.
Nice. Okay. Good. All right. So now it's results day. Tell me about that.
Well, the morning dragged by very slowly, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want Mike to know that I'm like stressing over this, because I don't. If I have a bad day, I don't want to ruin his day. So I'm staying very busy. He goes to the office, and meanwhile, we're putting in a pool. So everything is nice and quiet, and then all of a sudden, 8:57, there are three dump trucks lined up in the driveway. There's an excavator in the backyard, and all of these guys asking me, for direction for this or for that. And I'm thinking, all I can think of is, I just want to get to my laptop. Could you just leave me alone? I just want to get to my laptop. So 9:07, I finally get everybody away. I go check the laptop, and I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm reading and I'm scrolling through this endless list of numbers. And I look over and I'm falling over and I'm thinking, pass. Thinking, is that my number? Now I'm doubting whether I've looked up the right number. I come in to double check. I'm looking, thinking, I think it is. But I want to print it out just to be sure. So I can take a high. I mean, this is how much I'm like, I've got to be sure. I'm going back into the office to the printer. Michael is back home, and it's like he stopped me, like red handed. And he says, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I think I passed the bar exam, but I don't know for sure." So we're like scrambling to get the numbers, and then the doorbell rings. It's the alarm system guy. He answers the door, and he's like, "We'll be right with you." Closes the door back. We're looking, we're ferociously looking, and all of a sudden we both see it, jumping up for joy, screaming, and finally coming down off that high. And I said, maybe we should let the alarm system guy.
That's great. That's great.
So it was the most surreal feeling, and I couldn't wait to call my mom and to give her the good news. And it was the best feeling. It was
That's
something
great.
that I had dreaded for 14 years, and to defeat it was absolutely wonderful.
That's awesome. And then you took your picture and you went out and you took photos and showed your sign to everybody on the street.
Yes.
That's awesome. You want to talk a little bit about the Florida application process? It's a bear. It's really, really hard, and it's really designed to keep people from applying in many respects. What would you advise people about that? Because you got to do it. Everybody's got to go through it.
Right. Um, most people would say, "Oh, apply as early as you possibly can." Da 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 da, which I think is true. But apply by the deadlines. Apply by when they want you to apply. It would not behoove you to apply much earlier, because they really don't take. I don't think it's my impression that they don't really take your application seriously until you're getting closer to being a competitor, almost, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my biggest advice is, if there is anything on your application, and I'm not even talking about anything criminal, the biggest thing that I had discovered was, they give you so many lines to answer the question, and I'm thinking, I need to be concise. Answer the question, right? These are the lines. Answer the question. Get on with it. They don't want to hear whining or explanations, or that is not the case.
Yeah.
They want, if there is a good reason or even a bad reason why the A happened or B happened, explain it.
Yeah.
And if you're at all confused or worried or you need help, get an attorney.
Yeah.
Um, and I was shocked to, as I'm reading online, I'm reading horror stories, people going in front of the board for investigative hearings, and apparently for some people it's almost like just being in a firing range. You get all these questions shot at you, and a lot of times people aren't expecting it, and they're put on the spot. It's a very adversarial proceeding.
Correct.
So, reading all of that before I had gotten too far into the bar application process, I had already submitted it, but before I had heard too many things back, I had found an attorney, and she's absolutely wonderful. Anybody in Florida, I highly recommend Elizabeth Conan. She is out of Orlando. Google her. She is stellar. I cannot say enough wonderful things about this
Yeah,
woman.
it's a specialty to be a bar admissions attorney. It's one of the things people ask me all the time, and I have to explain that because of my license agreement with the examiners, I can't give that advice. I am expressly prohibited from giving that advice. But there are attorneys in every
Yeah.
state who specialize in bar admissions, and if you're in a situation where you think you might have to explain something or get called into a hearing, you are much better off to have counsel than not, even though you've been to law school and presumably, you think you
Right.
can handle it yourself. It's a whole different world. So I think that's good advice. And yeah, we'll link up for Elizabeth's information because I think she
Oh,
is a good one.
absolutely. And
Absolutely.
even the most what would seemingly be the most innocent things. For instance, I had filed a tax return extension the first year that I owned my business. That came up
Mhm.
as an issue.
Mhm.
Why did I file the? It wasn't late, and that was the question. Why,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I had never filed, so I answered no. They came back and asked, why didn't you report this? Why didn't you disclose this tax extension? Because in my mind, it wasn't late.
Yeah.
So I had to go through, so unless
Yeah.
you've led a completely Puritan life and you've not done anything, chances are you will find yourself explaining something. So she's wonderful as far as giving you guidance on what to say, what not to say. Completely wonderful. And thank God I got to avoid that entire unpleasant
Good.
investigative hearing. So,
That's cool. Well, it's been really quite a journey for you to get to this point, and I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of the fact that you hung in there. You had things that would have derailed, I think, a lot of folks. A lot of people would have given up earlier. They would have said, it's just not going to happen for me. There's the universe is telling me don't do this. That's not you, and I'm so glad you stuck with it. It was worth it, wasn't it?
oh, it absolutely was. It
Yeah.
absolutely was. And what I just want to tell people out there is that no matter how little you think you know about law or how worried you are that you won't pass, let me just tell you, after 14 years and two hurricanes, two weddings, a funeral, a stroke, a heart attack, and a 25-pound weight loss because of the stress of it all, if I can pass it after studying for 7 months, anybody can. And anybody can with celebration.
Well, that's very kind of you to say.
And
Appreciate it.
absolutely true. And you have a very wonderful program, and you absolutely deserve all of the accolades that anyone can offer you.
Well, thanks. It's, the fun part for us is getting to have these moments and getting to do these interviews and sharing stories because I know that your story is going to inspire a lot of people. There are going to be a lot of people who go, I thought my life kind of was miserable in places, but, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I can do this. And, I think, you just have a certain uh, approach to life that is so wonderful and an enthusiasm and a joy. And what a great member of the bar you're going to be. I'm excited to see what your career, how your career path unfolds, what happens. I mean, you really kind of got a whole new life now after you've left Ohio. So it's pretty
Yeah,
exciting, isn't it?
it is. It's very exciting. Very exciting.
Well, that's
And
cool.
thank you.
Yeah, well, you are welcome, and thank you for sharing. Is there anything that we haven't talked about here that you wanted to share with people? Because I don't want to stop you, but I do appreciate all of the insight.
Great to get to know you,
Well,
and
thanks.
you inspire people, you push people. Your lectures are wonderful. For what it's worth, my favorite lecture is the criminal law lecture with the once upon a time characters because it works.
Mhm.
It works. I mean, I'm working through a problem thinking, all right, what about Prince Charming? When is he reckless? When is he not reckless? And Pan and Hook, like how does that, the transferred intent? These are the things that stick. That was, for me, by far the most memorable lecture. It was wonderful.
Well, great. Thank you. And I love that show too. So,
You have many great lectures, but that one in particular really stuck, and that covered a lot of ground and a lot of tedious ground, and it was so well presented, um, and you should know how inspiring your lectures are.
well, thank you. No, I think we've covered the highlights here, and I know that people will want to reach out and connect with you. You've been part of our online community, and I hope you'll continue to do that and be available to folks. But I really appreciate it, and I hope that life calms down a little bit. I hope that good things are in your future, that pool is good for hanging out, and the new
Yes,
house, and all of the good stuff. We're going to be watching your legal career because I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see what you do. When we go from the restaurant to the law office. So
I can't wait to see either.
yeah, it should be fun. Should be fun. Well, thank you, Joni. It's been great. Congratulations again. And to all of you who've been watching and listening, thanks for being with us. I hope that you were as inspired today as I was. And we'll be back again soon with our next interview. So for now, bye bye, everybody.
Thank you.